Hey, everybody, this is Josh. Welcome back to another episode of the USAC Midwest Thunder Midget Monthly. On today's episode, joined by Greg Watson, the series director, and the 2025 champion, Tyler Nelson. Gentlemen, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks
Happy
for
to be
having
here.
us.
Yeah.
Greg, we talked at the beginning of the season. I told you how much I loved your guys' schedule. I thought the tracks that you guys hit is awesome. The camaraderie between the teams is awesome. Some really good drivers in the series. And man, did rain wreak havoc on the 2025 schedule or what?
Yeah. So actually, at the risk of too much detail, I kind of went back just to get my own head around it. So we started off the season with rainouts in April 26th at Montpelier and again on May 3rd at Fremont. Got our first race in on May 9th at Lima. Then the next night lost the May 10th at Millstream. Following week was able to run the Family Fun Night at Eldora, always a highlight. But then we lost May 22nd at Circle City, May 30th at Moeller, June 7th at Atomic, and 6/13 at Lima. Finally got back in action again June 15th at Millstream, and actually had our busiest streak of the year, which was intended to be busy. It just wasn't intended to be like the beginning of everything. We ran that Ohio Sprint Speed Week with the All-Stars, so we had the Lima race the Friday, but then we came back on June 15th and ran Millstream on a Sunday, Waynesfield on the 19th, which was a Thursday, and then wrapped things up on Saturday for 621. So seemed like we were up and going and good, and we actually got in the next race, 628 at Fremont, but then we lost 712 at Paragon. We lost the 719 at Montpelier, and the 726 at Kokomo, which is also always a big highlight to get to race at Kokomo and be a part of the USAC Sprint Speed Week. Came back at Millstream. Things were good at Millstream, weather-wise all summer long. But then we lost the 816 at Montpelier, at which actually we got through the heats and then got rained out. Ran Lawrenceburg. That was a lot of fun. Ran Circle City and Lincoln Park in September, but then at the end of September lost 926 at Moeller. Came back on October 4th and did the makeup at Montpelier and then the regular show. So all in, we had 25 races scheduled. We got 11 point races in and 2 non-points. Crazy.
Yeah, it's, it kind of, you guys had some rough luck. I mean, because a lot of places, I guess I think of Lima. I was there the night when they had the non-wing 410s out on the track, and it was raining. It wasn't raining so hard, obviously, they had to throw the red flag, but it was raining, and they kept racing.
Yeah.
A lot of tracks seem to have some pretty good luck with weather this year, but, man, you guys had a rough draw with the rain.
And it's not one of those where you hang up the phone after the promoter calls and you're like, I can't believe he did that. These were all, for the most part. The good news is there was only a couple of times that we made the long drives and got all set and then it rained. Kokomo was certainly the worst example of that. And then I drove back to Ohio in that rainstorm for the entire 2.5 hours from the point we got rained out, which I felt like it was just, heckling me. It was staying right over my shoulder all the way down the highway. But most of the time, these were cut and dry, no question. The promoter did what they had to do. So I never like to second guess them under any circumstances because they're the ones putting the money out there, making it happen. But this year, we were just wrong place, wrong time, wrong day, you name it. Seemed like it just weather had it out for us. What are you going to do?
Well, and Tyler, we're going to kind of touch on this a little bit later because I know one of the rainouts, whether Greg wants to hear it or not. That I know you were glad it happened,
Yeah,
but
the only one of those I was looking forward to. I mean,
yeah.
it was.
But
I
what?
hated to pray for another one after the season we had, but I mean, that's what I needed. So
So I kind of want to ask you, Tyler. What does, like Greg mentioned there, before you guys really got into the crux of it, you had that long layoff because of the weather. Does that do anything to you? I mean, you don't really get a chance to get into a rhythm before you get into really the the hardest part of the schedule as far as just one after the other after the other. Does that do anything for you?
oh yeah, it really deflates you because I mean we want to go race just as bad as they want to put on races, and all these track promoters want to put on races. Us racers want to go race, and so when you get a rain out after rain out, it gets like, man, why do we even have this midget? I mean, we can't go race it. So it was really deflating, and like that whole July was supposed to be in Indiana. I'm from Indiana. A lot of our races we split between Ohio and Indiana. I was like, man, we got a whole month of racing back home. This is great. Close tracks to us and everything. And the whole month basically got rained out. So that was a big bummer too, because I had family going to those because they're the closer ones and everything, and just didn't work out. So that kind of sucked. But yeah, from the racer standpoint, it really does suck, all the rain outs and everything.
Yeah, 11 out of 25 is not great. But like we talked about at the beginning of the season, the schedule you guys had, whether you were supporting the USAC sprints, Ohio Speed Week, the tracks that you guys visit. I've told you this year and talked about last year, and I bet this coming up year is going to be awesome. Just the schedule that you guys set up is awesome. What were some of your highlights for this past 2025 season?
Yeah, for me personally, and yeah, it sucks for the promoter too. I'll just throw that in there because you work. I mean, it started now, which is crazy. I got 5 calls this week from promoters, which is nice that they're calling me. That's shifted over the years, but it's October and they're already penciling in dates and firming up schedules. So it used to be maybe February speed weeks, when everybody went to Daytona, then you had to have your schedule finished before the promoters workshop down there. But now used to be PRI 1st of December. Everybody tried to have it done then. And now we're a good 6 weeks ahead of PRI and people are still hammering it out. So exciting that, I don't know, I've probably going to say, well, I got 5 or 6 races at Mount Pillier. 2 at Lima, 1 at Eldora, and 1 at Lincoln Park so far. Talked to Rich Farmer. We just haven't gotten to where we're both sitting in front of our calendars at the same time, but, conceptually talking about going back to Fremont for a couple, and then really need to talk about his plans for what he's doing at Waynesfield, because I anticipate more dates at Waynesfield in general, not specifically us, but last year he ran a limited schedule, and this year he's trying to expand that a bit. So, yeah, excited about next year. When I look back at last year, for me, that I call it a mini Ohio Midget Week that we ran in June with Millstream, Waynesfield, and Atomic. I've always been a big All-Star fan, so the fact that Rich is bringing that back is great, because I followed that around, and I always liked the All-Star Sprint Speed Week back in the day. So I'm glad to see that's back around. Lima's always a highlight for me because of the Mike Stryker race, and I think the cars are just so well suited for up there. And beyond we do this for the racing and the community we build and all that, I also feel like we have to try and pay something back, to the tracks and the communities that we participate in. So the fact that we can bring some visibility to the Mike Stryker sponsorship at UNOH means a lot to me, that every year that works out. So this year, talk maybe more in a bit, but we also got together with UNOH. Randy Lucius did a great job coordinating this, where we were able to get student volunteers to help support our race program. So I feel like our relationship with UNOH continues to grow, and hopefully they find that mutually beneficial.
Yep.
The Eldora Family Fun Day is so great. That's always mixed feelings. That's a big track, and I'm asking everybody to come out to this track. We had 20 cars there this year, but just the interaction with the fans, that session before things kick off for the day where they bring us all up on the hill and everybody has a chance to let the fans come around, sit in the cars, take the pictures, get the autographs, buy the merchandise, memorabilia, and all that. Just a really cool day, and all the energy in that place. I know it's not the biggest crowd they get all year, but for us, just to feel the energy and the excitement coming from those families up in the grandstand, that's so cool. Moeller, every year we go back there, everyone says how much they love Moeller. A bunch of guys tell me that's one of their favorite places to go. That kind of starting to feel like coming home, especially when we lost a lot of other races. I think from a competition standpoint, the Circle City race in September with the USAC sprint cars, the show that Jacob Boxell put on coming from the back of the field, driving in places nobody else was going to go, but Jacob was just so cool. And I was thrilled at the end of the night when some of the USAC officials with the sprint cars came by and said, "You guys saved us tonight. You were the best show by far." I'm like, yes, that's hadn't got that kind of feedback often with the USAC group. So that was something. The Lawrenceburg, I know that's close to home for you, Josh. And, that was another, okay, I'm asking everybody to come out to a big track, fingers crossed, want to kind of hold my breath until the last guy crosses the checkered and they all go back on the trailer. And I'm like, okay, it's all good. But very competitive race, very exciting night. And then, the craziest one of all was, we got rained out at Montpelier to start the season. And then we got our next race turned out to be in July, and that got rained out. And then we showed up in August and we ran half the program, and that got rained out. So I was kind of excited with all the things that Ryan's doing at Montpelier to play a role in that. That Family Fun Night was a great example, not Family Fun Night, the backpack night that he had in August. Our guys really stepped up to the plate, brought a lot of things to hand out to the kids. And again, that's what I want us to be, is engaged in those communities. And for a lot of us, like Tyler and I, we've been going there since 2012, 2013 or so. So we know a lot of people in the community there, and it always feels good to go back. So that was a cool night until the rains came. And then we came back in October and got to run double features. Again, credit to Ryan. A lot of promoters would have said, look, the contract says if you get your heats in, that's a full program. And sorry about your luck, but he was prepared to pay out 2 full purses. And we actually had some help from Heitmeyer Concrete that night. We're able to make the second race 1,000 to win the championship race. So, and that turned out to be an excellent night of racing as well. So I don't know. I guess considering we only ran 13, I gave you probably 7 or 8 as my highlights. But if we actually got the race, I was pretty darn excited. Consider that a highlight.
Yeah, well, when you do get a race, you guys put on a good show, and like we've talked about time and time again, the tracks you visit and the other series that are running with you, and it's all awesome, And the crowd at Eldora for the family night was a very big crowd. Montpelier's doing awesome things. You guys are getting around to a lot of cool facilities and showcasing your series and what your series is all about, and that's just awesome, and something you guys have been doing and are, I'm sure, going to continue to do moving into 2026.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is the reason why we get the invites from the promoters and the reason why we have the interest to the fans. But first and foremost, the support of the drivers. We have kind of stayed right around 22, 23 cars on average. each season now for the last 3 or 4 years. We had a high of 31 at that last race at Mount Pillier. Like I said, even the Eldora race, 20 cars there. The midweek Waynesfield race still drew 19. So solid fields. But then I think about the winners this year, and maybe Tyler doesn't want to hear this because he'd like to dominate a little bit more. But last year we had 8 different winners. This year we had 6 different winners in 13 races. So Bryce Massengill won 3, Luke Hall won 2, Tyler won 2, and then I guess Zach Weigel won 2 as well, and then we had Jacob Boxell and Matt Lux each with 1 each. So a good mix. Something we look at is we don't want to necessarily be a one-engine series. So the fact that Tyler was very successful with a Honda motor, but Massengill with a Chevy, ended up having more feature wins. There's a good balance there. And when we look at statistics across the board, yeah, the Hondas typically qualify a little bit better and maybe have a little advantage in the heat race and come feature. All that kind of balances out and you have a good mix. So I like the fact that there's 6 different guys there that won races, and I don't have the statistics, but the heat race wins were really shared around among our competitors as well.
Yeah, and you talk about this, and I was going to dive into it a little bit later, but we'll go ahead and touch on it now because you're talking about results and wins, and Tyler, you were just the guy that was consistent.
Yes.
Not a single time outside of the top 10 all season.
I didn't know that. That's cool. Great.
Yeah, my average finish, I think, was 4.2 this year, which is incredible. I tallied it all up and everything. And, barring outside, I had, I think, 2 7ths and a 9th for my 3 worst. So, as stupid as it sounds, we had the best worst finish of anybody this year, which I think is a good statistic to look at.
Yeah.
And it was cool, all the racetracks we went to, and when we actually got to race, touch on what Greg said, all the places that want to have us. I love going when we race with like a bigger series when we're on flow and everything. I feel like that's where we really fit in well because, we get to expose ourselves to such a big audience on flow and everything and get to showcase what we're doing. So.
Yeah, no. And I mean, to talk about that is, you guys have a competitive series. You look at the point standings and it tells you that not only this year, but the year before. But also it's something that Greg's talked about is the reason this series came about is because he wants people to be able to race and to be able to afford to race, not running people out of the sport because they can't afford it. And that's another thing about the series that's just awesome in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know we're probably going to get into this a little bit later, but I was racing a national midget before this, and the reason I went D2 racing was, I got priced out of national midgets. So, it's a lot more economical, and it's not any easier. Let me tell you, it is hard to win in our series. I mean, our series is so close. Our cars are, when you look at qualifying, the top 10 is separated by like 2/10. I mean, it's throughout the field. We're just all so close in speed. It makes it hard to pass, and it makes it when people do incredible things like Boxell did at Circle City, where he went from all the way in the back to the front, so much more incredible just because of how close everybody is in speed.
Yeah. And I can't pass up the fact that check behind you there says you went from 8th to the win.
Yeah, that was a good night. We had a little bit of help there, but I mean, we were fast there. As Greg was saying, that kind of plays into the Hondas. The Hondas have a little bit of an advantage on big tracks, and we were on the big track that night at Millstream, so that kind of played in our favor a little bit. Some of the small slick spots, when it gets slicked off, the Ecotechs really shine. They got a little bit more grunt coming off the corner, but at big tracks, when you can keep it wound up, the Honda's a little bit better.
All right, very good.
I think
moving on, Greg. Let's talk about the top 10 in points.
Yeah. Well, before I move there, I just want to say we do a redraw after our heat races, and we do an invert for the qualifying into the heats, and then coming out of the heats, depending on how many heats we have, usually 3, and we'll have the top 3 guys redraw. So you got a 1 in 9 shot of either getting the number 1 pill or a 1 in 9 shot at getting the number 9 pill. Although people argue that the odds are slanted one way or the other. That they're not. They can't be. There's only 9 pills. But Tyler often was not thrilled with his pill draws at the end of redraw and had to make up some ground to get the top finishes that he did. So I just want to give him credit for taking that in stride, at least, externally, and, stepping up to the challenge and getting that done.
Oh yeah, it makes it exciting, that 1 through 9 redraw. I mean, you never know where you're going to start. My luck's terrible, so I mean that just is what it is. I even had people redraw for me. We did a redraw at Lawrenceburg up in the stage, so I didn't want to draw myself in front of the stage because I'm absolutely terrible at it. I know you can't be good at it because it's just random, but it seems like it doesn't ever favor me. So I picked this little girl. Yeah, I picked this little girl out of the stand to come draw for me, and I think I won the first heat race, so I was the first one to redraw. And out of all the pills out of there, she pulled the 9 pill for me. So, can't change that fact no matter who draws for me. So, it is what it is, but it makes it exciting, and you just have to take what you're given and go try to make the best of it.
Yeah. I don't think I can get into the top points without us starting with a conversation about how Tyler found himself in the points race, because I think as we approach that final 3 races, counting Montpelier as 2, so basically 2 nights left of the season, 3 races to go. Tyler had other commitments, got Matt Lux's hopes up that, and I guess Bryce Massengill's as well, that they had a shot at the championship, and then things changed. So give us a little background, Tyler, on how you found yourself in that situation and your thought process as you made decisions to change your itinerary, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, so I'll start off before the schedule was even announced. My wife, she wanted to go. Hold on, my dog's. We might have to make a little cut here. So anyway, at the beginning of the year, my wife, she had this vacation that she wanted to go on because her friends were going on this cruise, and she's like, "Can we go on this cruise?" And I was looking at the dates. I looked at last year, and it's like, okay, I might miss the last race of the season, but I've never put together a good enough season to be anywhere in contention points. So I was like, and it's getting late in the year, anything could happen with the weather. So I was like, yeah, we can go ahead and schedule that. That'll be fine. So, as the season progresses and goes on and on, we find ourselves in the point lead and we just keep holding it later and later and later. And so what was the last race before we were supposed to go back to Moeller? I don't remember what that race was.
I think that was the Lincoln Park race.
Yeah. So exactly.
The 4th round weekend.
So we race at Lincoln Park, and I'm still planning on leaving this trip. I'm gonna miss Moeller on that Friday night, and I'm gonna miss the 2 makeups at Montpelier. So it come down to I was gonna miss 3 races. So we run second that night, and I'm like, man, I'm leaving with the point lead. How can I do this? So I look in, I go clean the car the next day, and I'm looking at the weather, and it's like all week it's just supposed to pour. And I'm like, kind of. So I start looking at flights and everything on Saturday to get back because we were going on a cruise. So I had to get up from Cape Canaveral to the airport. So I'm looking at flights that make sense to get me back on that Saturday. And I found one. So I go, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and buy this, and whatever happens, happens. So that Friday, it ends up raining out because there was nothing I could do about that one. We were leaving at 5 a.m. in the morning. I was definitely going to miss that Friday. But Saturday, I was like, man, there's a way I can get back. So I booked that flight. So I started off at 7:30 in the morning in Cape Canaveral on a cruise ship. We took a bus to the airport. Then, once you're at the airport, the Orlando airport has a tram. So I got on a train to get to my gate, then an airplane, a car, a truck and trailer, all before we got to Montpelier. So, it was a extraordinary day of travel and a lot of logistics to make that happen, but it all worked out. It all timed out okay. And, we were able to get there and able to race it out for the championship.
Yeah, I think you remember, Josh, last year we had kind of a unusual situation with Bryce Massengill having other commitments over the last 2 races of the season that potentially put his championship in jeopardy. And then both those races rained out and he was safe. So we keep finding ourselves in this drama. But, in my mind, Tyler did everything because I don't think you were in the points lead until September, right? At what point did you take that over?
I think I might have taken it over. So me and Bryce traded it back and forth a couple times.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think after Millstream, the second Millstream on the little track, whatever date that was, I think I held it from there. I'm pretty sure that's when I took the lead back and kept it from there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, in retrospect, looking back at it, is like you did what you had to do all season long. You were in that position at the end of September. You did heroics logistically to get back in order to participate. So I felt like you deserved having a good night and finishing well. And I think actually you clinched it after the makeup race, even before we had to run the final race of the season. So, yeah, I'm sure Matt wasn't thrilled with all that. But, it just seemed right, much like last year with Massengill ultimately getting that after a tremendous season. So it's a great story. It seems like every year it can't be simple. We got to have right down to the wire. Some excitement.
Every year, if you have the points lead with 3 races left, you should feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it made for some nervous nights on the cruise ship as you're contemplating what lay ahead for you. So,
I was just hoping that, and another thing that happened, I was hoping, we get back to port on time and, they clear it. Cause, when you get back to port, it's like you have to wait for them to clear you to get off. And then another thing that just happened is the government shutdown just happened the day before. So I was like, oh man, what's TSA going to be like at Orlando, with it shut down? Is it going to be normal? Is it going to be way backed up or anything? So, that's another thing that, when I was getting trickling of the news on my phone,
That's great.
And Greg, you were talking about the points and that led to that story there.
Yeah. Let me run through because there's stories all through it. But I mentioned Matt Lux a couple of times. Matt, longtime participant in the TQ series. There's been a lot of different series, but Matt's been a part of that environment for many years. His family as well. So Matt's been with us for a couple of years. One of the things that I think is great about Matt is that he is incredibly competitive. In terms of personality wise, I just, there's been times where, that guy's just burning, when something doesn't go well, but he's not one of those guys that blames somebody else or vents, to anyone. It's just something internally in him that, he wants to do well. He's driven to do well. And he builds tremendous equipment. He's a clean, good driver. So, Had things worked out differently and Matt been our champion, I would have been very pleased to have him represent our series. Tyler gets to go to the USAC Night of Champions now, and good for him. But had that been Matt, we would have been comfortable with that as well. Last year's champion, Bryce Massengill, graduated from high school, started at UNOH as a student there, full scholarship for bowling. Like, what? The guy's an incredible golfer, an amazing bowler, and he races cars. How many people have that combination going for him? Plus, he's, just a great guy. And I always say, I'm convinced he's going to be my congressman someday because he just has that bearing about him. Everybody in the pits loves him, even his competitors. He's the guy going around shaking hands when we're yelling, get in the cars, get to the hot chute. Bryce is like, I got 3 more people I got to shake their hand before I go, kind of thing, So good family. Another great season. I think he missed one race due to commitments of the bowling team, and that put him a little behind, but another great season. I want to say 4th place, Luke Hall. It's a breakout season. I don't know that you can say that for Luke Hall with all that he's done in his career with the sprint cars, 360 wing and RA stuff, and Boss Series and so forth. But he and Kyle Heitmeyer, the car owner, really gelled in our series. And I love the fact that Luke is a part of our group. I think a lot of the younger drivers look to Luke and say he just takes it that extra step that everyone aspires to, but not everyone's confident enough to do. So, if somebody's going to be hammering the cushion on that big track, that's Luke, no fear, right? And I think his skills are just fantastic. We had kind of a unique situation in 5th this year. Ian Krieger and Braden Schwartz both tied with 490 points. Now, USAC has a tiebreaker system where you look at top finishes. How many firsts did they each have? How many seconds? How many thirds? And so forth. And in that tiebreaker system, Ian actually came out ahead of Braden. So in my mind, they're both finished in 5th, but Ian, for the permanent records, I always think of Dick Jordan, and his focus on the integrity and the credibility of the USAC records, right? So this is one of those deals. For Dick, we're crediting Ian with the 5th place in the standings and recognizing Braden's great accomplishments as well. So I think Ian would tell you this was a crappy season. Nothing went right all season long. And yet he still had some extremely good finishes and a lot of mechanical issues or wrong place, wrong time kind of things that led to, not the overall finish that he wanted. But he's been around all of us for so long, you forget he's still such a young guy with a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity ahead of him. Braden Schwartz is another guy that's been he was one spot away from our most improved driver last year. Continues to get better. And in terms of his movement in points from last year to this year, he's our most improved driver of the year, which made me feel a little bit better about him tying for 5th, but the nod going to Ian in the permanent records. Buddy Holmeyer was our top finishing rookie in 7th. He came to us from the Kenyon series and did a great job. We recognize, and Tyler's probably going to laugh when I say this, but it's the Wally Sexton Rookie of the Year Award. So all of us that had the opportunity to race with Wally prior to his passing a few years ago, Wally was a unique individual, always had a song or a joke or a story, and sometimes all 3 wrapped into one, and was always hustling. But he was a low buck guy that just loved racing. His whole life, circled around that. And over the years, he had provided a tremendous number of young drivers opportunities to drive his Focus car back in the old USAC Ford Focus series. And then he transitioned into the Montpelier Midget series as a car owner, benefited both of my sons actually at that time. and then continued. Guys like Joe Ligori, drove for Wally. So want to keep his name out there. They always say nobody's really gone until nobody mentions their name. So I'm doing my part to keep Wally's story out there. But a good year rookie wise for me, I know that especially when you're dealing with 20 and 30-year-old drivers, stuff happens in their lives, marriages and kids and jobs and things. So there's always that flux. So behind Buddy was Jaden Cox. So great to see him in the 13th place. He also came from Kenyans. Dylan Trost, name's familiar to anybody that's followed go-karts in Ohio for years. His dad was a long-time kart racer. Dylan's made his mark as a young man in karts. Chase Hodge comes from a Indiana sprint car family. His dad raced sprint cars in Indiana. Tayton Long, another young guy. I think he's 15, 16 or so. Made a number of shows. Kayla Rell's little brother, Jake, ran a couple of races. And Sammy Males comes from a somewhat recognizable small community out in California called Elk Grove. I think they've, had some big name drivers go on to NASCAR in the past, maybe. But he and his family came out for the summer. And then Seth Crandall, unfortunately, was only able to get one race in this year, but I know he's working on coming back next year and running on a full-time basis. He's a pilot, ex-military guy. It's just the kind of people you want to have involved in your racing organization. So, and just a couple of returning folks, Taylor Nybert. She raced with us off and on, has kind of been focused on school the last couple of years, but came back at the end of the season and is hoping to run more next year. And then Tyler Watkins, just a kind of an inspiring story because he hustled and worked, kind of a Wally Sexton kind of story, as he just found a way to put a car together to get it out to the track. Had some mechanical issues, but also had some solid performances. So it'd been a few years since he had run with us. I'm glad to see him back too. So, and last, I miss Cole Morgan in 8th. Good year for him. Zach Weigel, name that's probably familiar to a lot of your listeners, that was our champion in I think 2022 or 23, can't remember now, and went on to make his mark this year in the USAC National Midget Series with some really solid runs and a win in that series as well. Michael Magic had a good run and ended up 10th in some limited races. And then there's Jim Jones. Jim's been a part of our series. And again, Tyler and I have been around Jim back in the Mount Pillier Midget Series days in early 2012. Jim's well into his 70s at this point. Had by far his best year in terms of his competitiveness. Did a great job improving the car, did a great job improving his driving, and I forgot, it was you, Ty.
Yep. The hardest I've ever had to work in a heat race was against Jim Jones. He started on the pole, and he was going to win this heat race at Moeller, and luckily I caught a late yellow and was able to get around him, but I'm telling you, he was on a tear that night. I don't know what changed in him, but he was on a different level that night, and I had to work my butt off to get around him. But he's great to be around and a great competitor to have with us. Just always a pleasure in the pits.
My immediate response was, Tyler, why'd you have to go and do that? But then I thought, no, that even makes it better because this was legit, right? You did drive hard to pass him, and he every bit earned that redraw position, which he drew the number one pill, coincidentally.
Yeah, he got to start on the pole.
So, right. So just a great night for Jim. And, our series is better for having him in it. We appreciate everyone that participates in the series, but I think Jim's a great role model to all of us that you can live your dreams still in your 70s and have a good time doing it and do it the right way.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about your your points battles there. You talked about a lot of the drivers that ran with you guys this season. You mentioned your rookie of the year and your most improved as well. It's just another great season has come and gone. It's surprising, and you're talking about earlier, you were mentioning how people are reaching out to you now and setting up schedules. And I don't know, I had the thought at that point when you were talking, it's like, it used to feel like there was an off season. Now it really doesn't feel like there's an off season.
I'm kind of hoping we can wrap up the schedule here in the next few weeks and I can go to PRI and celebrate, Tyler as our champion, and then take December off and enjoy going up to the Rumble as a fan, and maybe go to the Chili Bowl as a fan, and just enjoy the time and be ready to go come next April. But I know I've taken a ton of time. I just real quick want to run through the folks that helped make this all possible. And then I know you got some more questions, and I want to hear some of the answers from Tyler about his background and his race team. So I always neglect, and I wanted to make sure to say, Hoosier is a great supporter of USAC. And I think sometimes they kind of take a beating, as any company in their position would. But from our series standpoint, going to the SP3 right rear tire has been a great thing. It's a durable tire, still a reasonably priced tire. And a portion of the tire sales does flow back to USAC, which they pass on to the series based on the number of races we have and the number of licensed USAC drivers that participate with us. So that makes up a big part of our point series. We have support from Performance Electronics out of the Cincinnati area with their ignition components. They're our series sponsor and also sponsor one of our heat races. So that goes a long way towards helping us build a good points fund for these guys. This year, Jeff Hill Trailer Sales came on board. I got a call from Jeff. He wanted to know how he could help, if there was anything left, and I'm racking my brain. It's like, I kind of like the way High Limits has that sponsor, Whiskey Myers, for their series. We could do something similar. So Jeff and I make a deal. That money all goes into the points fund. But Jeff's also very involved with Kenyon. So a couple of days later, I see their post. It's like, we have a Victory Circle sponsor. Like, wait, that was my idea. But good for Jeff. I'm glad he's spreading it around and supporting different open wheel series. Heitmeyer Concrete, I mentioned a couple of times, but they sponsored all three of the races at Millstream so that we could pay $1,000 to win there. They helped us with the last race at Montpelier, so we could pay $1,000 at that one. And they also helped pitch in for us buying the transponders this year. Now, that was a pretty big ticket item for us, but they made a contribution towards that, and everything's appreciated. Performance Powder Coating in Russia, Ohio, been a hard charger for years now and has supported, in particular, Waynesfield Speedway and others. Appreciate having them on board, and the hard charger is always an important thing for us. The Rosewood Machine in Rosewood, Ohio, with their precision move. Anybody that's been to Eldora has seen their presence. Been to Shady Bowl Speedway. Jeff, the owner there, raced at Shady Bowl for years. Their precision move is always kind of that thing that we can use to recognize somebody that maybe the results didn't necessarily shine a light on them, but we wanted to call out the thing they did in the B main to make the A, or the thing they did in the heat race to get into the redraw that put them in a good position, or just a class move of some type that was a positive reflection on the series. And then VMS Motorsports, actually out of Minnesota, but they're a great online parts supplier for Legends cars and Midgets and a number of other things. And they sponsor our Quick Time Award for the Fast Qualifier. Stifel Home and Auto and the Hoosier Auto Racing Fan Club are other two heat race sponsors. Lynn Cook, a Racer's Friend Hard Luck Award. We appreciate that. And then I think Tyler will talk a little bit more, but Link Chassis, has done some things for us and has got a nice thing for our banquet coming up here in a couple of weeks. Willwood does the tough break. That's the poor guy that draws, the guy or gal that draws in a 9 pill for the redraw. And then Saldana Racing Products, a certificate for the first car out of the race. So thanks to all of them. I'll shut up for a while, let you and I'm going to interject comments, but you and Tyler talk about Tyler's stuff for a while.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, and a lot of people there to talk about to help support the series and make sure you guys can get to the track. And it's great to see that, and I'm sure it'll continue into 2026. Tyler Nelson, 2025 USAC Midwest Thunder Midget Champion. We've said it before, we'll say it again. We're going to keep saying it until they crown somebody else in 2026. You, sir, are the champion driver of the number 91 Midget from Kansas to Indiana. How'd that happen?
So let's start off. I was born in North Carolina, and then around 9 or so, I got shipped to Kansas to live with my grandparents. You know, there was some things happening with my parents and everything. So me and my sister went to go live with my grandma. So she was looking at, you know, she got this 9 and 10-year-old. My sister's just a year older than me, kind of dropped off in her lap. And she goes, you know, well, you guys moved halfway across the country. We need to get you involved in some things so you can make friends and everything. So my sister was easy. She said, well, what do you want to do? And she said cheer. So, you know, she got her involved in cheer, and, you know, that was her outlet and everything. Well, you know, I come to this 60-year-old woman, and she goes, well, what do you want to do? And I go, I want to race. And nobody in my family's ever raced or anything. So, you know, she goes, well, what am I supposed to do with that? So we were gonna go dirt bike racing. And it just so happened she has a place down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and the dock went underwater. And so she got talking to, you know, the guys that were building the dock, and it turned out to be Ozark Barge and Dock that Steve Genneton owns. His son, Arrington Genneton's been running a wing sprint car this year with high limit and stuff and everything. But we got talking to him, and he goes, oh, no, you don't want to go race those dirt bikes. Come to the go-kart track and come, you know, with my son and come race go-karts. And so we went there, and my grandma ended up meeting this guy named Roger Gorbett, and he built go-karts and everything. So we started renting a go-kart off of him, and it kind of turned into a good friendship between me and Roger, where, you know, I'd go over there every day after school or go every weekend. I was over at his house helping him build go-karts. He showed me a lot of things about, you know, how to fabricate, how to race, how to maintain stuff and everything. So I went from racing go-karts. I ended up winning a couple of championships at our local track, Thunder Lake, which sadly isn't there anymore, but it used to be across the street from Lakeside. So I won a track championship there. And then when it came time to step up, he luckily came with us, and we got a micro, and I started racing micros at Grain Valley and Sweet Springs in Missouri. And so ended up winning a track championship at Grain Valley, and actually got a feature win at Sweet Springs, which is a huge deal. If the people that race weekly at Sweet Springs know, it's tough there. And so I was able to click off a win there and everything, and moved up to racing a midget, and Roger came along again. And by this time I'm 18, and I've won a lot of midget races, and you know, pretty accomplished in the Kansas City area. And you know, decided if I'm going to try to make it, you know, I got to move to Indiana and see what, you know, how good I actually am, because you can be really fast in Kansas, but when you get back here, it's a whole different ball game. So, you know, at 18 years old, loaded up my midget and my trailer and my truck and moved out here. So I've been out here since October 2015. And just been racing ever since. Went to go work at Spike Chassis when I got out here. So I got to work on midgets and sprint cars and, you know, be in a more professional setting of building things. So that was pretty cool, the things I got to do at Spike Chassis. And then that's where I met my current crew chief, Mike Hurst. He was the salesman at Spike Chassis when I got here. So, you know, when I first got out here, I was just an 18-year-old kid by myself, trying to do everything, trying to work a normal job and trying to race this midget and everything. And, you know, at first, you know, Mike was just, you know, my boss. And then, you know, he kind of saw as that first year went by that, man, this kid's kind of struggling. He's going to need some help here. He's trying to do all this stuff and everything. So, he kind of stepped in, and me and Mike just have a great friendship now. And, he helps me with my midget and everything. So, it's really turned into a true life friend. I mean, we go out to dinner every Tuesday, and, it extends way beyond racing. But so I'm happy to have that relationship worked out and everything. But that's how I ended up in Indiana racing.
Oh, man, that's a way to get here. And, you're right. How many times we see guys moving to Indiana from Kansas, from California. I mean, all over the country, they're coming to our neck of the woods to race for the best of the best. And like you said, you're going to get here and you're going to find out real quick if you got what it takes. And it's awesome to see your story and how you got here and how you're continuing to race. And now you're a champion with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets.
Yeah, that's awesome because, when I got back here, obviously I had a national midget, and I mean, it was tough. I mean, the national scene's really, really tough. And, towards the end, I had an SR11. I had, a great car, SR11, all the engine and everything. But, I mean, the engine I have now for my D2 was what I spent in a rebuild on my SR11, So it just, we looked up, and we're the last guys with a bumper pull trailer, not a stacker, last people without carbon fiber. I mean, I know that's not going to make you win a race, but, we just kind of saw the writing was on the door. We were like getting priced out. And, so when we made that decision, we sold all our national stuff, and I came back, and we're like, well, what do we want to do? And I was like, let's see what this D2 thing's about. So me and Mike Hurst, we went and visited a race at Montpelier, I believe it was, or it might have been Gas City, and just went and watched the D2 midgets. And we're like, if you don't have a national midget racing beside it, nobody's going to know that it's not a national midget. I mean, the quality of show we put on is incredible. And so once we saw that, we went to maybe 3 races watching, and there was 3 different winners. So we knew it's a very competitive group. The quality of car was incredible. And, we just go, yeah, this is something we're going to do. So I ended up renting a car off of Chuck Taylor and trying it out to see if this is where we wanted to invest our money. And I got out of the car and I had a blast. And I go, yeah, we absolutely need to do this. That's awesome. So you kind of talked about Mike, and you even mentioned Montpelier. So my understanding is that you did some stuff there at Montpelier with the Midget series, and that's kind of where things really took off. Is that right? Yeah, so I got back here in 2015, like I said, and back then Montpelier had a run what you brung midgets, basically. So the D2 guys would be racing with us. We had chain drives, D2, national, some big engine stuff that I'm sure there was out there. It's just everything. But the D2s were scored separate from us, so we had kind of 2 races going on in one. And you go up there, I mean, 10, 15 times a year, it seemed like. I mean, they had a lot of races. It wasn't quite weekly, but it was almost weekly. And it was a really cool thing to go up there. I've had some great battles with people. I remember one night I finished second to Davey Ray, and I just hounded him the whole race and couldn't quite find a way around him. So it was a great thing to come back here. And you got Keith Coons bringing cars to Montpelier to break in some of his new drivers and everything. I mean, it was really tough, but it was a cool deal.
You talked about running with the national midgets, and what you mentioned like looking over and seeing this guy's trailer and this guy's car and stuff like that. Was it the challenge not just mental? Was there another part of it that you felt was just something that was just difficult to overcome?
It's just, I mean, it's a huge stage. So I had a hard time, myself personally being able to, compete at that level, I think. just because it is so tough. I mean, you have to be on 100% to go race national. And, I was a young kid. I didn't quite understand what I was trying to do. I mean, you just don't quite understand the gravity of it and everything. So, that's a little bit to it. I probably wasn't quite mature enough to come and do what I did. But, you grow up and you learn, and, it was kind of trial by fire. So, I mean, I could make mains and I could have good runs. I wasn't as consistent as I needed to be. And it's just a real struggle when, these guys, they have multiple backup cars, they can go 150%. And then when that doesn't work out, they can go back and go 110 and see if that works, and, I didn't have that luxury. So, coming at it from that angle, it's like, man, if I tear this car up, it's going to be 2 or 3 months before I'm able to get back out there, before I can afford to put this thing back together. And so, when you're coming at that mindset, it's just so tough to compete at national level.
Yeah, it sounds like just the financials just weighs on you, because you end up thinking more about, I guess, racing financially sound than you do racing to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to jump in there a little bit. A couple of quick thoughts. I've had the pleasure of working with Jay Drake at KKM. Worked out a deal for their used tires for a while. But, I mean, you walk in that facility in Columbus, Indiana, and you could be in Mooresville in North Carolina. It's every bit just as high a level of a program. And, I don't even know. It's full of people, right? Tyler's taking care of his own car. Keith's got a whole team of mechanics and helpers. He's got a tire guy, that's all he does, kind of thing. So I think I started watching midgets back in the 1970s, and a grassroots guy could work a regular job and run a midget and be competitive. And today, I think USAC has taken that series to a different level. Even things like, we're coming up on the Western Swing. Well, Tyler and I can't afford to take 3 weeks off work and make a couple of trips back and forth across the country in a rig that gets 9 miles to the gallon, and go participate in that. And knowing that there might be 30 entries and Keith might have 20% of those himself. So you feel like 20% of the field's pretty well set before you ever turn the first lap out there. So I don't have anything against that. I love the fact that USAC National Midget Racing is going strong, because you look at the early 2000s, 2010 range, they were struggling for car counts too. But Keith and Chad Boat and, Clausen and others have really, supported that, and it's come back strong. And it's become a place where people go to go on to the next level, right? They're willing to spend a lot of money to get the good results and then hopefully translate that into something more. But I struggled with the fact that, and I think about Mike Hurst, and, Tyler could probably fill in more about Mike's background, but Mike was one of those guys, I'm going to say the 1980s, I might be off a little bit, 80s, 90s range, but he was a grassroots midget racer, and I wanted there to be a place for guys like Mike Hurst. I'm glad he's involved in our series now. And I say, well, would Mike be involved in our series now if he got priced out when he was 25 years old and walked away from midget racing then? No. We all worked with Mike when he was at Spike. Now he's with the Link chassis. He's contributing to our sport in a lot of ways post driving career. And, there's so many stories. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So I think about, Jeff and Jerry Knuckles. They were a pretty big deal in the 70s, early 80s in midgets. Unfortunately, Jeff had an accident, but was able to contribute to the racing community in a huge way through their Columbus Motor Speedway here. But maybe even more so in the support that Jeff and his family gave to the local quarter midget, the Buckeye Quarter Midget organization. We got a bunch of drivers, my sons included, that spent time in the Buckeye Quarter Midgets. And, I don't think that would have happened had the Knuckles family not supported it in the way that they did. So finding the middle ground, and this has been somewhat controversial, right? Because there used to be a regional midget series, and the D2 guys supported that. There was the Mount Pillier Midget series, and we supported that. So I think, the car counts were there in order to put on a good show for the fans and so forth. But it just got really hard to be in that middle ground. And I would say Tyler was like at the upper end of the middle ground, but there were a lot of guys trying to do what Tyler was doing with even older versions of national, doing the air quotes there, national midgets that were not comparable to the Toyotas and the Stantons that a lot of folks had. So there needed to be a cost-effective middle ground for today's version of the Mike Hurst, Jeff Knuckles, that were involved in the past. And I'm excited that we've got guys like Chet Gerke or Matt Lux or Tate Martz or, a bunch of guys that have had long careers, but they have found a home running with us where they could still be very competitive and contribute to our little racing community in big ways. Enough soapbox from me. Go on. Get back to your conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
a little bit about what Greg was saying is like when I got here, not talking bad about anybody, but you could show up at a USAC national race and you could look around and you could go, okay, I'm better than 10 cars here, just because of what they had. They were having fun, just like Jim Jones, he's out there having fun. He'd show up to USAC national race and just, want to participate. So, you knew you were better than that. Well, as the years went on, it was like those 10 cars dropped off. They got priced out and went away. And what replaced them were, full carbon fiber, titanium, Toyota midget engines. And it's like, how are you supposed to compete with that? And exactly what Greg said. I felt like I was kind of stuck in the middle there where, when we had the regional series, I could go and compete. I won a regional race with USAC in 2019. And it's like, but that jump from the regional to the national was just incredible. And it was so hard to overcome.
And I think we were there at a time, and not to pat ourselves on the back, because we were just trying to find places to race. And Levi was leading the national, USAC division at that point and was supporting the regional races. But I think if you had taken the D2 cars out of those fields, you didn't have full fields at most places.
Absolutely not.
And those races, ultimately didn't last because they didn't have the car count to support it. So again, to me, it goes back to the economics. If a guy wants to race a midget and can't afford to do the national series, which most of us can't, then the D2 provide a perfectly reasonable, affordable, competitive, visible option that gives you the chance to race with a great bunch of people.
Yeah, and Tyler, it kind of makes me wonder, when you transitioned from the National Series to the D2, was there a learning curve there? Did anything change, or did you feel like, okay, I'm coming into this with the knowledge I've got in the past, and really like stepping into that for the first year, you just kind of took off? How did that go? How did that transition go?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I always tell people is it's a midget. I mean, people that ask me that have ran national midgets, well, what's that D2 cars like? I'd say the first 30 feet out of the corner is where the biggest difference is, because we're about 100 horsepower down from a national midget. So, it doesn't throw you back and, it doesn't get off the corner as well. But once you get past that initial acceleration, the 30 feet out of the corner, there's really no difference. I mean, it truly is a midget. And, like I said, people in the stands, they can't tell that we're not a national midget. We put on just as good of a show, if not even a better show some nights than the national guys do. So, it's really an incredible series. It's an affordable way to go racing. I mean, no racing is cheap, right? But this is a very economical way to go race an open wheel car. We get a bunch of different venues to go to. And it's just a ton of fun. And the group of guys we got is incredible. We got some old veterans, and unfortunately I'm part of that old veterans thing now. When I got here, I was just the fresh young 18-year-old kid, but we got me at 28. Matt Lux, I'm not sure how old he is, but
he's not telling.
Yeah. And then we got Luke Hall, Chet Gerke, just this good group of old veterans that have been around, accomplished a lot. And then we got these young kids coming through that are just tearing it up, like Zach Weigel going to national races, Jacob Boxel, he had a podium at Eldora at the Four Crown. That are coming through our series, and it's a great launch pad to go to that national level, or even go to the next level of, sprint car racing or whatever. I mean, I truly feel like our series develops that just because of how competitive and how close everything is.
I can't agree with you more on that. And you talked about guys taking that next step, and Jacob with a big podium there at the Four Crown at Eldora with the national series. And I kind of want to touch on it because you kind of touched on it. We talked about the points earlier, and I kind of want to go back to the points again. You won the championship, 52 points over Matt Lux, 57 over Bryce Massengale, and you had Luke Hall in fourth and Ian Krieger in fifth. Talk about, that tight points battle in the series this year and last year, and you touched about the guys. What makes this series so much fun to race?
We're all just grassroots racers, so we're super competitive. But at the end of the day, you're going to be going over to that guy's trailer and say, "Oh man, that was so much fun! That was an awesome battle." There's nobody that hates anybody in our series, and I think we all talk about it. Every race you're over talking to people in the trailers and everything, and you're wishing them good luck, and it's a true camaraderie. Like, everybody hopes everybody does well. And what a perfect example of that's Bryce. Every night you're going to have to be contending with Bryce Massengale. I mean, he's one of the best in our series, especially when it gets on the bottom. I've never seen anybody run through the slick like he does. I mean, he's just incredible. And it's going to be, you're going to have to contend with him. You're going to have to contend with Matt Lux, Luke Hall. I mean, we got 7 to 10 drivers that can win any given night very easily. I mean, when Zach Weigel shows up, he's won a national race now, and they got incredible equipment. So, you just have that many guys that can win and that many guys that want the other one to win. Of course, we all want to win the most ourselves, but they truly celebrate when one of us does something incredible. Like, I can't tell you how many people went over to Boxel after that 18th to first run. I mean, we were all pumped for him, and it looked great for our series. I mean, everybody was pumped because he won, and pumped that we put on such a good show for Flo that we could show people, hey, these cars are the real deal, and we got real talent in them.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more.
I want to add one thing to that Circle City deal. You mentioned something about the visibility on Flo and so forth. So that was a Flo televised race. And, I mentioned the good feedback from the USAC officials. Well, after the race, they included a Flo highlight of our feature, which was the first time that had ever happened. And I remembered looking at the post, and like within the first 45 minutes, 5,000 people had watched the highlight. That's incredible exposure for our series, but I couldn't resist our announcer, Christian Dunn, that travels with us everywhere. I'm like, dude, 5,000 people just heard your call of that race. A year ago, it was like an experiment to bring Christian in, and he'd announced go-kart races and a few other things, but this was a huge step for him in his career, and now he's getting all kind of opportunities at Millstream and a lot of other tracks as well. But it's like that was kind of the icing on the cake of that night. Of it all went great, and now the whole world's seeing these guys and seeing what a great race that was. So that was just really cool.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, and we'll continue to talk about it. You know, the thing I enjoy about this, whether it's a USAC Midwest Thunder Midget Monthly or conversations with other people in the dirt racing industry, whether it's drivers or promoters or whoever it may be, is just getting the stories, learning the stories, hearing the stories from everybody involved. You know, because we've talked about this before, and if I go to an NBA game or I go to an MLB game, I'm not rubbing shoulders with those guys. But if I go to a dirt track to see a race, not only am I going to see a good race, but I can go in the pits and I can rub elbows with those guys, and you see the camaraderie amongst the teams and what you've done to make the series something that people can financially afford. You guys got a great thing going there with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets.
We got any more questions? Tell me a little bit more about what you and Mike are doing at Link Chassis. They're trying to break in. You know, Spike's been around for a long, long time. Triple X has got a great program out on the West Coast with what they do. But what's your experience running a Link and knowing that Mike is one of the people helping market that and hopefully grow that into a bigger thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I'll start by telling, a little bit about Mike. So Mike was a pavement racer back in the late 80s, late 80s, early 90s, throughout the 2000s. I think his last race was maybe in 2000, 100 lapper at Speedrome. He was an incredible pavement racer, always a small budget guy. He actually worked at a model train store when he first started racing midgets, and he didn't get into a midget until he was 34. That was his first midget race. He raced some go-karts before that, and he always tells me some cool stories about street racing and how dangerous it was. But oh man, we had a lot of fun. So but he got in. His first race was at 34 in a midget. So He's won 3 USAC regional races in pavement series back then, and just an incredible accomplishment. So he's been in racing for a long time. And then he went to work for Bob East at Beast Chassis and had a very accomplished career there, helping them with throughout the 4 days and the 9 days. He was crew chief on some of those cars, helping those kids come up through the Steve Lewis development line. And had a long career at Bob East. And then he eventually transitioned to Spike, where, I met him. So he sold a lot of different cars and everything. And that's what makes it so special to have him, at Link Chassis, because, he's been in the industry so long. He knows everybody. And, it kind of gives Link some legitimacy to have a name like that behind them. And the Link Chassis is just incredible. So the thing that sets it apart is all our tubes are CNC bent and notched in-house. So every car comes out identical. Our stand-up table, all the pieces lock into a certain spot, and they're fixtured incredibly. So every car is within, I'm going to say, thousands of each other. I mean, you can take any piece off of my car, and Matt Lux, the guy I was battling with the championship for, he runs a Link. And you can take any piece of my car and put on his car, and it's going to be the exact same. So that's what really sets us apart, is just the precision between car to car. And so, unfortunately, if you have an accident, something happens to it, all your pieces are going to go straight over to the next one, and you can have one built very fast. So we started off with the Midget, building them for Keith Coons. And how me and Mike got involved is Tim Lynch is the builder of Link chassis, and he used to buy stuff off of Mike when he was at Spike because Tim was building TQs. So he'd buy Nerf bars and stuff and make his TQ use the Spike stuff so that he didn't have to build Nerf bars or keep Nerf bars in stock. I'll just go, it fit, Spikes fit, just go buy a Spike. So they had a little bit of a relationship. And after Mike retired from Spike and everything, when we bought our D2 Midget, I had a Bullet, and unfortunately I had a bad wreck at Lima Land, and the Bullets are built by Spike. So I called Spike. I was like, hey, this frame's tore up. I need somebody to look at it, see if we can get it repaired. And unfortunately, they were really far behind. And Tim Lynch had just released the Link Midget with Keith Coons. So I knew that the Bullet was close to a Link, so I call him up. I'm like, hey, I can't get this car in at Spike. Would you take a look at it? I know it's not exactly like your car, but it's close. Would you take a look at maybe putting a front clip on it or anything? So I went down to drop off my car, and I had saw how he was building Midgets with, being all CNC notched and bent and everything, and how precise they were. And me and Mike had talked about it. Well, Mike really wanted to build a Midget that way. He wanted it CNC bent, CNC notched, so that everything's the exact same. And as soon as I left there, I called him up. I said, hey, you got to call Tim because he's already doing what you want to do. He's already got it all figured out and everything. And so we went down there and talked to him, and, just have an incredible relationship with him now. And, with Mike being a salesman for him, and, I try to help out a little bit. I don't have any official title or anything, but, I try to help out all the cars we sell and everything. So that's really cool. It's grown incredibly well. I don't know the exact number, but I think there's over 104, 105 links that have been sold. So it's a big number for midgets. With the small community of midgets there is, that's a huge number. They just released a junior sprint that's out there. So there's a Link junior sprint built the exact same way, same high precision and everything. And then I think for the future going forward, there's pre-orders are open for micro sprints. So there'll be some more coming down the pipeline, but we're getting into other cars and other avenues and things. But it's really cool to be a part of that. Before, I was the first guy to buy a Link other than Keith Coons. So it was pretty cool to get in on the ground floor or something like that and see what it's become.
That's very cool. And it sounds like you kind of hinted at some of it there. So I got to ask you, Tyler, what does an off season look like for you?
So my D2 car's already tore all down, waiting to get to go through the engine and everything, but it's a bare frame. So that's how we start every year, or end every year, is tear everything down and look through it, so that we can start building back and hopefully build back better. I mean, it's hard to build back better when you win a championship, but you're always looking for that improvement. So really a lot of off-season prep work goes into this and everything. So we'll see what comes for on the D2 side. I'm also working with my engine builder is Luke Wilson over at Four Piston. He's Four Piston's mainly a drag racing place for Hondas. They're world leader in drag racing Honda engines. I mean, they build 2,500, 3,000 horsepower 4-cylinders to go down the drag strip. And my old engine builder, Larry Hayduck, he had passed away. And we were having some engine issues. We were having some ignition issues and stuff that we were trying to get sorted out. So we went to go talk to Luke over at Four Piston. And we really were just going to buy an ignition system from him to try to get our engine running. We were just looking for that support. Well, we kind of got talking to him and kind of started a friendship there, because although he's heavily involved in the drag racing world, he absolutely loves midgets. he'll tell you stories about going to IRP when he was a kid with his dad, watching midgets go around IRP, and he's like, I just absolutely love midgets. So, we kind of developed a friendship, and we decided to buy an engine from him, as well as an ignition system, to kind of get that support from him. So with his love of midgets and everything, and he's absolutely thrilled that we got to win the championship and everything, he's looking to put together a national car, and so he's building an engine for that. So we're going to get that ready for him, and thankfully I get to drive it some.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really excited to return to that big stage, now that I'm more mature and, got some backing behind me and stuff. I think, that'll be really cool to go back there now that I'm, more mentally ready for that big stage.
Wow, Josh, you got the big scoop. I didn't know about all that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'll tell you what, you kind of led in. I like it when people lead into my next question because it makes my job a lot easier. So you've talked about, what you're doing this off season, what you're doing into 2026. Are you going to be back with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets to defend that title?
Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to defend the title, but we're going to make every race we can. Just depending on what national races we go to and everything, the national schedule is so condensed that, when they race, you have to go with them. I mean, it's like, you got the early Kokomo race, Midget week, and then, they might sneak in one at like Bloomington like they did. So, those, just depending on when the dates, of course, BC 39. So, there's some big events we want to go hit, and we'll just have to see where the schedules fall, because we definitely want to be back and support the Midwest Thunder Midgets, because I honestly think that Midwest Thunder Midgets is kind of where everything's moving to. Just with, especially for guys like me, just grassroots racers, it fits so well. So we definitely want to come and support every race we can with them.
And we appreciate that, but we also are proud when one of our competitors does well at the next level. I think that just sends a message to, I read off that list of all those rookies that came out, that are coming out for the first time. And I guarantee you some of those guys are thinking, well, I'm going to be that champion like Tyler at some point. And especially when they see the Jacob Denny's and the Zach Weigels and the Jacob Boxels go on and have success. I don't even know really how to say this, but Jacob Boxell has only won 2 features with us in 3 or 4 years of competing, and yet he's running in the front of the field at the national level. I find that amazing. So I look at our list of drivers and say, under the right circumstances, those 7 or 10 guys that Tyler's talking about could win a race in our series could also compete at the national level given the right circumstances. Now, some might get that. Some aren't willing to pay the price, make the sacrifices, commit the time, whatever. We all have decisions to make along the way. But I've always believed that the best thing for a business or a series or whatever is to have their best people go on and do even bigger things elsewhere, right? Because somebody will want to fill that seat. So I'm glad Tyler will be back. I'm also glad that he'll be carrying our flag out there at the national level, and people will say, oh, that's their 2025 champion. So very cool.
Definitely. And it's becoming a regular theme. You mentioned the guys that have gone up to the national series and competed and raced well. And it's awesome to see Tyler going back next year, and I'm sure he'll be competing with them just like the other guys have been. Tyler, any merchandise available, and where can people follow you on social media?
All my handles are just Tyler Nelson on Facebook and Tyler Nelson Racing on Facebook. I don't actually have any merchandise. I have hero cards. If you see me at a racetrack, stop by. I'll get you a hero card, but no t-shirts or anything like that for sale. I got to thank my sponsors that helped me through this year. 4-piston racing was a big part of that. Curtis Motor Sales, that's where I work. My boss, Mike, he's a racer. He'll kill me if I don't. if I don't mention this, I think it was 2001 or 2004 legend car champion at Anderson. He lets anybody know that right off the bat. So,
Heck yeah.
Well, and his sons aren't too bad either. If
yeah, his son Kyle and Nick. So I got to thank him for letting me go race because it got to take a lot of time off of work. Our Friday races over in Ohio, I got to take the whole day off. So it's incredible that he lets me go and do that. We got advanced racing suspension. Their shocks are just lights out. Running them. Earl's Indy. He helps me out a lot with fittings and just all kinds of miscellaneous stuff. The Auto Spot, that's my buddy's mechanic shop. He helps out a lot and just gives us a ton of support. And then let me see if I'm missing anybody. Alchemy Engineering. Sean over there, it used to be Waterman's, now he's Alchemy Engineering. So if you ever need a fuel pump or anything like that, he's awesome. We actually had one day, I think this was right before Lincoln Park, the bracket to our fuel pump, where I was spinning the fuel to get the fuel primed up and found that the bracket to the fuel pump was broken. So I was able to call him up on a Saturday and say, "Hey, I need this." He's like, "I'm here, come and get it." So that saved a race right there because we didn't have a spare one of those. And then Superior Bearing and Supply, that's where we get a lot of our stuff too. I know that's a conflict of interest with the series, but yeah, she helps me out a lot over there. So just thanks to everybody that helped us with this season, and I was glad I was able to close it out.
Awesome. And Tyler, you talked about your plans moving into 2026, and Greg, I want to get back to you. Any plans you can tell us about the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets moving into 2026?
Yeah, I guess my personal philosophy, what was that? Shawshank Redemption, get busy living, get busy dying. So that you just can't stay in one spot, right? And this is what we started in 2016. So 10 seasons under our belt, starting our 11th. It's hard to imagine. My business partner, Chuck Taylor, and I didn't really have a business plan, didn't have like an end state in mind. It's just been, what do we do this week? What do we do next week? How'd that work out? What do we need to do different? So I do think in a lot of ways we've landed on a good format, a good structure. You've been very kind with your compliments today. Some of the things I thought for 2025 that raised the bar was us purchasing our own transponders and subscribing to the My Race Pass technology, which really allowed us to be more efficient in how we ran the shows. That required us to have a few more hands. Chuck and I can't do it all. So, we brought in the UNOH students, and that was fantastic. One in particular, Audrey, really stepped up and was a critical part of our success this year and just making everything run smooth. Year 2, I mentioned Christian Dunn, but year 2 with our traveling announcer, and he's done a fantastic job. So, I think the right components are in place, and yeah, Christian might get the dream job and off he goes. But now I can say, hey, do you want to be the next Christian Dunn? And we'll replace him. Audrey and the other UNOH kids, they're in school. Their resumes are going to look awesome with the things that they're doing. So I'm sure we can get more UNOH kids to say, hey, why don't you do what Audrey did and look where she ended up? So all that's good. One of the things that Chuck and I are always most concerned with is maintaining that competitiveness. And I think every year we've tweaked the rule book a little bit based on things we've learned during the course of the year. This year feels like there was no major, we got to fix that kind of thing. But where I think we need to focus our attention is on a stronger process to tech the cars and be more efficient in that way. We try and do a lot of that post race, and honestly, in a series that has no employees, just volunteers. Tyler's on our tech committee. He was a great addition to our tech committee. But he just got done racing a race. Chuck and I are trying to do 12 things at once. Randy Lucius and Todd Krieger are trying to handle the tech part, and they had a car in the race, and they've got a 2.5 hour drive home. So I'd like to see, because we've got the equipment. We upgraded our Whistler. We've got the valve spring tools. We got the cam checkers for the profiles. We've got all that stuff. We just need to find a better way to do that work in advance of the season. I'm a proponent of sealing the engines, just so we've inspected them, we know what's in them, and as long as the seals are there, everybody can have a beer and go home after the race instead of sitting there in the dust and the dirt and pulling off valve covers. So I think some process fixes there, but we've got good racetrack partners that we talked about earlier. I hope that, the sponsors that we have will come back. If not, I'll be working hard to bring in some more. Guys come and guys go. I get that, but I'd love to see everybody stay forever, but I know life's not like that. So they get opportunities, or they have life happen and they go, and new people come along, and we're excited that they're here. So I think it's all good.
Yeah. You're just going to keep building off of it. I mean, I don't know. I have confidence in you guys. I've been watching you guys closely, especially here the last couple of years. Again, Tyler's proven it here. He wins a championship. He's going to be moving up to national ride for some races next year. And that's been a theme throughout your progression with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets, scheduling races at awesome tracks, being support series during Ohio Speed Week and with USAC sprints. I mean, I like what you guys are doing. I think your tech idea, especially with sealing the motors, I'm a fan of it. Sure, there are some people that won't be, but I like where you guys are heading. Unfortunately, our season's come to an end, but it won't be long, and we'll be back hopefully together to talk about 2026. So, guys, if you don't have anything else, I don't have anything else. I appreciate you all jumping on.
Oh, yeah, this probably took a little longer than you anticipated, but it's been a great conversation, and I loved hearing Tyler's stories. I was learning things as much as you were, Josh. So, and to hear more about Mike Hurst and his background and his story was really cool. So thank you. I know earlier this year we had talked about making this a regular thing, and then I felt like, well, crap, I can't go on every month and talk about rainouts. I need a story, and it took all year to get a good story together. But we definitely appreciate your efforts, what you do. I dial in and watch all of your shows. The one about the Barr family racing was outstanding. They're great people. So you're highlighting the people that I'm interested in, and I'm glad to see that that opportunity exists. So thank you for all you're doing, helping us and everybody else.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I was glad to come in and talk to you guys, and the spotlight you put on our series is really cool.
Well, and that's what we're here for. Can we help out the folks that are here around us, that are fans just like myself? So don't be a stranger. Feel free to come back anytime. Mr. Nelson, 2025 USAC Midwest Thunder Midget champion, Tyler Nelson, and co-owner and series director Greg Watson. Guys, thanks for hopping on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, this has been an episode of the USAC Midwest Thunder Midget Monthly, and we hope to see you at the track.